All right, my bad. I ain't got that much time, so I'm finna hurry up and try to get through this. But so basically, the other guy, I think the organization had been in existence since 1788. But at the time where he started speaking to these people, the guy that was like one of the leaders in the organization, his name was Etienne D. Jolie or whatnot. So Vincent Oge pretty much got sparked from that. Once he joined this movement, he became a leader along with Julian Raymond, and then he left. Now I believe he stopped in the United States first, but by the time he get back to Haiti or the Saint Domingo, that's when he basically let the governor himself, the guy, his name was Blancha, what was it? Blanchalande. His name was Blanchalande. He let him know what he thought, what he had planned or whatnot. The guy wouldn't grant the rights, so then he started writing to the officials at Cap Francaise, if I say it correctly. Basically threatening them, saying like, I'm basically taking a gentlemanly means. I'm not trying to be a thorn in anybody's side, but if you guys don't yield to these demands, then I'm gonna be forced to go to the next step. That was pretty much what he was communicating. But as far as like it's a part of his reasons or whatnot, it's the same thing that he communicated while he was in France before he left. He basically said that he was not fighting for the rights of black people. He was not fighting for the rights of slaves. He was fighting strictly for the rights of the franchise at the time, the population of 24,000 persons. And then he went on to say, as far as like, his declaration, he was saying like he felt like if they granted the franchise these dutiful rights, that it would also help make the institution of slavery stronger. So he made it that freaking clear. To make a long story short, major battles happened. This took place from October to December. He was finally caught. He was tricked into being caught because they made it seem like they was going to come to an agreement with him and yield to his demands. But when he got caught, he got executed. And they said he got executed brutally. I believe he was laid down or something like that. I'm trying not to ash on the carpet. He was laid down something like that, and then basically beat to death. And that was on February 6th of 1791. So as far as him, I wouldn't call him a revolutionary. In a sense, I would call him a reformist. But when I was thinking about this, it was difficult for me to weigh it in my mind because I was trying to be objective as I can be. And I was thinking about what I said in my last vlog, as far as my Malcolm X vlog, when I pointed out, when I was talking about like, you got different revolutionaries or whatnot, some radical, some not as radical, but from A to Z, they all still fit a fucking category. And so when I was thinking about Vincent Oge, I was trying to think like, how can I place him into this category? Because I could see from a certain, like, I could see why a person may look at him and just completely just write him off as an Uncle Tom. And if they do, I can understand why they got that point. The thing is, it's like, okay, he was fighting for black people in a sense, but it's like he had I would say like, like, okay, within like black circles, black thoughts and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? You got a little conversation that happens sometimes. Like if you're a black person, you got like a Republican view. A lot of times you might be called an Uncle Tom. You know what I'm saying? Like Juan Williams, for example. I haven't seen too much with him recently throughout the years, but like him, for another person, he's a very opinionated guy. And as far as like this guy, Vincent Oge, not to say that Juan Williams is an Uncle Tom, because I don't think that at all. I just think he got his own perspective. But some people on that side of the fence who think a certain way, like just take like a Jesse Lee Peterson, and I'm going to try to make this, I ain't going to talk too long on this point. Like him, for example, I could see him or somebody like him referencing this guy, Vincent Oge. But from my point of view, I don't want to just really throw him in the trash somewhere. I want to say like because I got a certain view, and I'm not going to go into it on this vlog because then it'll take too long. But it's a certain view. Like, how like, when you think about things like this, a lot of times a person may challenge you to come up with like, okay, what is your solution to a plight, for example? Like, I got my own solution as it regards America, and especially black people in America also. I'm not going to get into my opinion on that right now, but I'm going to say this. As far as this guy, Vincent Ogay, he is definitely somebody that I'm going to bring up in the future. But just to go ahead and go through this, basically, like, okay, he got put to death. This is during the midst of the French Revolution, where things was getting worse. And it really became even more worse starting in the beginning of 1793, because a lot of things happened. Like, for example, King Louis the 16th, right? He was arrested in August of 1792. Then he was put to death 5 months later, exactly January the 20th of 1793. France had also declared war on Britain at this time. Now, this is when the United States gets thrown into the picture, because you had like the United States and France, they had a treaty that they, were both a part of. It was called the American-France Alliance. And it was basically just like a covenant between the two countries to protect each other if they have to go to war with somebody else. You know what I'm saying? And as far as like what was going on in France, they wanted the United States, as far as like the revolution of France, they wanted the United States to not only support them, but also support them against the British. As far as George Washington, he didn't really agree with that completely. And one of like he was the French minister to the U.S. His name was Edmund Gannett. He became extremely vocal. He got out of his body. He started like stoking the emotions of people in the country as well, because you had a lot of people that was in support of the French Revolution and their declaration of war against Britain also. And collectively, they were referred to as Francophiles or whatever. So this guy stoked a lot of those people, and he went as far as, even though he's a foreigner, essentially, he went as far as threatening the president of the United States, threatening to, basically start a civil war in this country. And then there was a French fleet that arrived, I think it was in Philadelphia, or was it? It was somewhere, but basically he had these soldiers get out of these ships and also join the protests in the streets, because there was protests going on, especially in Philadelphia at the time, and it got to the point where it was like 10,000 people, roaming the streets day and night or whatnot. When George Washington got pissed off, he demanded that this guy be punished or whatever, and that's exactly what the French government did. They put a warrant out for his arrest. They wanted him executed immediately. He got caught. George Washington, he asked for leniency basically, and George Washington granted him that, and then he went to like political obscurity somewhere in this country after that, and then he doesn't get mentioned too much. As far as this period, the war between France and Britain is still going on. By 1794 is when John Quincy Adams got promoted to be a minister to Holland this time around. And that's a position that he served from 1794 to 1797. I want to say November of 1794 to 1797 to like June of 1797 or something like that, if not April. And then shortly after that, that's where he met his first wife at, Louise Catherine Johnson. And he got married to her in 97. Actually, he met her, I think he met her before that, but that was like during his first time going to Europe earlier, if not the second time. But as far as like this period, he got well acquainted with her and he married her in 97. The war between Britain and France is still going on. It gets to a point where, the French, they started like collecting American ships and shit like that. And by the time of John Quincy Adams' father, by the time he becomes the president of the United States, so by 1800, let's put it that way, I mean, not yeah. Actually, like, a year before his term was over with, but by like 1800, I believe the French had seized about 300 American ships, or like around that amount, about 300 American ships. But regardless of the exact amount, the total of goods that they took from these ships added up to $55 million. Now, they were still trying to keep this policy of neutrality going on at the time, because when the French were starting to get out their pocket, especially with their minister to the U.S., Edmund Gannett, trying to cause a civil war in the country. Even during that whole little thing, George Washington tried to, he gave a speech and he said, we're going to maintain a policy of neutrality. Basically, kind of like the Dutch did when the American Revolution first popped off before Britain finally started attacking them. You know what I'm saying? So that's what President John Adams at that point attempted to do. Now, luckily for the United States, because like one of the other issues that happened like shortly after this, right? As far as a meeting that went on between, I'm trying to remember like what year was it? It was